I'm a Brit. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'll admit to more than a passing interest in the recent US 2024 elections, but to be frank, we have our own issues on this side of the pond. I'm no political analyst, but I do like to observe and learn more about other people's parenting styles, and to be precise, what I can learn from how other people parent their children. Over the past few decades, 78-year-old Donald Trump has sent shockwaves through the business world and global politics, not once but twice as president. His blunt, no-filter style has made him one of the most polarising figures of our time. But for all the attention on his leadership and controversies, there's surprisingly little discussion about him as a father. He has 5 children with 3 different women. We've all seen the picture-perfect family portraits, the carefully curated success stories, and the family tree. His eldest, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka, Eric, Tiffany, and Barron, plus his 10 grandchildren. But when I started researching this video to find out more about Trump as a dad, I realised that something unusual was missing. When kids grow up in wealth and fame, they usually have something to say about their parents. Celebrity kids often break away, air grievances, or at the very least make it clear they're not their famous father. Maybe they rebel, write exposés, or give tell-all interviews. But the Trump kids? Nothing. No rebellion, no major scandals, no exposé. Is this fierce loyalty, fear, or is it simply that there's just no issue here? Let's examine what we know about Trump and his family, not as a businessman, not as a politician, but as a dad. Before we even attempt to answer whether Donald Trump is a good dad, we need to ask, what actually is a good dad? And who gets to decide? Because if you ask 10 different people, you'll probably get 10 different answers. I'd love for you to share what you think makes a good father in the comments below. I really want to know what other people's perspectives are on this. For the sake of fairness, let's consult a couple of experts. Dr. Michael Lamb, a leading expert in fatherhood, emphasises that good fathers provide trust and reliability to their children. He suggests that being authentic and present is crucial for a father's role in child development. Dr. Jordan Peterson, a psychologist and speaker, stresses the importance of fathers being present physically, mentally, and emotionally. He advocates for value-based parenting and emphasises the father's role in providing guidance and structure. The Modern Father website outlines that a good dad serves as a role model by treating others with kindness and respect, being a firm but fair disciplinarian, being consistent and reliable in their children's lives. Now, generally speaking, there are quite a few qualities that tend to come up when we talk about good fatherhood, such as providing emotional support, teaching values, things like integrity, discipline, and work ethic, encouraging independence while still being a steady guide, and of course, building a loving, supportive relationship. But we all know that parenting isn't a one-size-fits-all. Some dads are warm and affectionate, others are firm and no-nonsense. Some prioritise success, others prioritise emotional security, and no one gets it all right. So how do we actually judge whether a man is a good dad? Is it about how successful their children become, their children's happiness, or is it about the relationship that the man has with his children? Because when we look at Donald Trump's parenting, that's the question we have to keep in mind. So now that we have a general idea of what a good father is supposed to be, let's take a look at Donald Trump's parenting style, at least from what we can see publicly. What's immediately clear is that Trump is not what you'd call a hands-on dad. He's openly admitted that he wasn't involved in the day-to-day parenting of his children. No bedtime stories, no school runs, no nappies. His first wife, Ivana, famously said during an interview with Ray Darcy that he has never changed a diaper, something he's actually quite proud of.
I'm wondering, was Donald the type of dad who changed nappies?
No way.
No way, no.
No way.
Never changed a diaper?
Never changed a diaper.
Yeah.
You know, he was very caring. He loved the kids. And, but he would not really be a dad which would take them for the stroll in the Center Park, in the stroll, or go and play the soccer with them, or do something like that. He was always on the telephone making the business. So I would send the kids in the morning before they went to school to the office. They were playing with the Legos on the floor, and he was on the telephone making the deals. And he was good, loving dad, but he could not do kids talk.
Oh, he couldn't.
He did not.
He didn't do any of that. Yeah.
He did not know how to do that.
Right.
So until the kids were, in university, when he could talk business with them, then he, now this is where we are now.
It's also worth noting Trump's views on traditional gender roles in parenting. He openly admitted that pushing a pram or changing a nappy or diaper was simply not for him. But why? Was it because he saw it as unmasculine? Was he too focused on his outward image to be seen doing women's work? Or was it simply the way that he was raised? Because let's not forget, none of us are blank slates when it comes to parenting. The way we were brought up shapes how we raise our own children. And Trump's father, Fred Trump, was known to be quite a domineering figure, a man who valued power, success, and discipline over emotional warmth. But that's a topic for another video. What Donald Trump has done is instill a strong focus on hard work and ambition. His older children, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, have all worked in the Trump organization, and Trump has repeatedly emphasized the importance of success. He wants his kids to be ambitious, to strive, to earn his trust in business. In a 2004 interview in New York Magazine, Ivanka said, "We were sort of bred to be competitive. Dad encourages it." And to be fair, on paper, that seems to have worked. His adult children are business people, media personalities, and political figures. They haven't publicly rebelled, they aren't known for reckless behaviour, and Trump himself frequently praises them. In fact, if there's one thing that stands out, it's how genuinely proud he seems to be of their accomplishments. He talks about them often, particularly their success and discipline. No drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes, and no tattoos. But here's where things get a little bit more complicated. His children are extremely loyal to him. Like I said before, unlike many celebrity kids, there are no major public conflicts or real efforts to distance themselves from his influence. Now, you could say this is a testament to a strong family bond, or you could argue that their loyalty is partly about maintaining the Trump brand. After all, the Trump name is a business, and they are part of that business. So it would be like bad-mouthing your boss. You'd get fired, or in their case, cut off. There's also the question of emotional connection. Some sources suggest that growing up, his children craved his attention and had to work to earn it. Ivanka, for example, has said that her parents' divorce actually made her closer to her dad because she learned to not take his presence for granted. That tells us something, doesn't it? And then there's Donald Jr., who, aged 14 at the time, was so upset by his parents' divorce in 1992 and his father's very public affair that he refused to talk to Trump for over a year. As an adult, he's arguably the most like his father, almost a carbon copy in terms of style, personality, and even political views. So what does all of this really tell us? Well, I think it's clear that Trump values success and discipline over warmth and emotional involvement. His children have risen to that challenge, but was that because of his parenting or in spite of it? And of course, we have to acknowledge the obvious. Trump is a larger-than-life, controversial figure, and much of what we know about him comes from media portrayals. There's always a limit to how much we can truly understand about someone's parenting from the outside. But based on what we do know, we can start to see a bit of a picture forming. At this point, we need to address the elephant in the room. A lot of people, critics, and even some professionals have speculated that Donald Trump is a narcissist. Now, I'm not here to make an armchair diagnosis either way. To the best of my knowledge, Trump has never taken, let alone made public, a formal psychological evaluation for narcissism. But let's be honest, there are definite signs that point to narcissistic traits. A grandiose sense of self, a need, or in his case, a demand for admiration, control and image management, difficulty accepting criticism, and, perhaps most relevant to this discussion, a lack of deep emotional connection. If he were a narcissist, it would raise some big questions about his parenting. One of the key traits of narcissism is low empathy, which could explain why he wasn't an emotionally available father. We know that his children had to work for his attention, to earn his approval through success. And we also know that when people mention his kids, Trump often turns the conversation back to himself. So here's the real question. Is he proud of his children because of who they are, their personal qualities, their individual strengths? Or is he proud of them because they are extensions of him? When he praises them, is it because he values them as people, or because they reinforce his image of himself as a great father and successful man? It's impossible to say for sure. So much of his family life is private, but it's worth asking, because if a father's love is conditional, based on achievements rather than connection, how does that shape the father-child relationship? That's something we need to think about as we continue to piece together what kind of father Donald Trump really is. Like all parents, Trump has strengths and weaknesses, and it's only fair to look at both sides of the coin. One thing you can't deny, Trump has raised children who are ambitious. Donald Jr., Ivanka and Eric all work in business and politics, and they've shown they can handle the pressure of public life. Trump himself has said that he wants his kids to be tough and to earn their success. Did they have a massive head start in life? Of course. But being born into wealth doesn't automatically guarantee drive or discipline. Many children of the ultra-rich don't work, don't take on responsibility, and end up in the tabloids for all the wrong reasons. This hasn't happened with the Trump kids. Obviously, being a Trump comes with privileges, access to elite education, powerful connections, and a foot in the door of billion-dollar businesses. But here's the thing, Trump didn't just hand his kids everything. Yeah, he brought them into the business, but they had to prove themselves within that environment. Ivanka in particular has been vocal about how hard she had to work to gain her father's trust in business. Whether you believe that's entirely true or not, the fact remains his children do hold leadership positions and they haven't publicly squandered those opportunities. While Trump wasn't the kind of father to do school drop-offs or bedtime stories, he was involved in shaping his kids professionally. Many of them worked alongside him from a young age, sitting in on meetings and learning how he did business. Now, whether this was done in a nurturing way or a sink or swim is up for debate, but there's no doubt that his influence played a massive role in their careers. One of the biggest criticisms of Trump's parenting is that his approval seems to be tied to success. He's proud of his children, but is that pride based on their personal qualities or their achievements? We've seen in interviews that Trump often brings up the fact that his kids don't drink, don't do drugs, and don't have tattoos, like we said before, as if all of these things alone would make them good kids. What about emotional intelligence, kindness, a sense of identity beyond the Trump brand? Some might argue that when love and approval are conditional, based on performance rather than personality, it can create deep-seated issues with self-worth. If we're looking at public appearances, Trump doesn't come across as an openly affectionate or emotionally available father. We've seen very few moments of genuine, heartfelt closeness between him and his kids. It's mostly about business and the family name. Now, some people will say, well, that's just his personality. He's old school. He's not a touchy-feely kind of guy. Fair enough. But emotional warmth is a key aspect of good parenting. A child needs to feel valued for who they are, not just for what they achieve. There's also been some speculation that Trump has different levels of connection with his children. Ivanka has clearly been the golden child. Her role in the Trump organization and later in his administration speaks volumes. What about Tiffany, his daughter with Marla Maples? Reports suggest that Tiffany had a much more distant relationship with her father, especially growing up. Unlike her older siblings, she wasn't immersed in the Trump business world, and there were stories about her having to compete for his attention. And then there's Barron, his youngest son, who has been largely kept out of the spotlight until this recent election campaign. While that's understandable for privacy reasons, it does make you wonder how involved Trump has been in his upbringing compared to his older children. Of course, we can only judge based on what we see in the public eye. Behind closed doors, things could be very different. Maybe Trump does show warmth and emotional support in private. Maybe his children genuinely don't feel overly pressured. But based on what's available, his own words, his children's interviews, and reports from those who know him, his parenting style seems to be one of the high expectations, tough love, and business mentorship, rather than deep emotional involvement. So what can we actually take away from this? Donald Trump's parenting style is a fascinating case study because, in many ways, it highlights a real divide in how we think about good parenting. On the one hand, he's done something right. His children, at least the ones in the public eye, are high-achieving, disciplined, and fiercely loyal to their father. He's instilled a strong work ethic, given them opportunities, and mentored them into their respective careers. But on the other hand, there's a clear question mark over his emotional connection. From everything we've seen, it looks like his love and approval might be tied to success rather than unconditional support. And while ambition is a great thing, feeling valued just for who you are, not just for what you accomplish, is something every child needs. So what's the key takeaway here? Balance. A sense of ambition and high expectations can be incredibly powerful parenting tools, but only when paired with emotional connection, warmth, and genuine love. Every parent has their own style. Some are more affectionate, some are more hands-off, some focus on discipline, some focus on nurture. There's no one way to be a good parent, but at the end of the day, kids don't just need success, they need security. They need to know they're loved, regardless of achievements, mistakes, or failures. So whether you see Trump as an admirable father or a cautionary tale, his parenting reminds us of one simple truth. Raising strong, successful children isn't just about building the resumes, it's about building their hearts and minds too. So after looking at the good, the bad, and everything in between, what kind of father is Donald Trump? Honestly, that's not really for me to say. And really, it's not really for anyone else to decide either, except for his children. My goal today hasn't been to judge, but to explore what makes a good father. And if there's one thing that this has shown, it's that parenting is complex. Some parents lead with discipline, others with warmth. Some focus on achievements, others on emotional security. And in most cases, the truth sits somewhere in the middle. Trump's parenting style might not be for everyone, but it does highlight an interesting conversation. What really matters in raising kids? Is it success? Is it security? Is it loyalty? Or is it a mix of all of them? At the end of the day, being a good father or a good parent is about more than one thing. It's about finding the right balance for your family. Whether you admire Trump's approach or question it, there's always something to learn when we step back and look at different parenting styles. And that's what really matters, understanding, reflecting, and choosing the kind of parent that you want to be.